David Peng with you. It's incredible. I often do this. Start recording right when the train's coming. We are in coming into mid-January 2026, and looks like we are going to be getting more trains and a new timetable. The new Chinese National Railway timetable will be with us soon. It's a bit late this year. The 26th of January 2026 will be when it will take effect. Actually, they spilled the beans from Hong Kong. The official Chinese National Railway WeChat official account, as of when I'm recording this, I don't think they've actually announced the new timetables, but Hong Kong spilled the beans. Let's take a look at the new timetables. I think one of the biggest things that's happening is that they're actually changing some train numbers for the new timetables. Of course, train G1 is likely to remain on the Beijing to Shanghai high-speed railway line, but there are some changes, especially for northeastern China. Train G901 will now become train G101. And for trains to Hong Kong, there will be a lot of changes, especially for cross-border trains that go a longer distance. So that too is going to be quite a big change. It's been a long time since they've actually redone the railway train number, the whole thing. It's actually, the way I see it, a previous use of the train numbering system was not really done in an optimal manner. I mean, it felt a little bit like, oh, we're going to add this train number because we're just going to add a new train. So sometimes it didn't really seem to make too much sense. But thankfully, with the new timetables, it's going to start making a bit more sense. Although for for long-time train riders on a high-speed railway network, it means that there's going to be a lot of train numbers changing. You're going to have to get used to. I think so far they're still keeping with the different so-called number divisions, as in train G1 is going to be long distance, and train 6001 and later that'll be shorter haul. So that's going to stay put so far. Especially if you take a look at the timetables for the trains to Hong Kong, short haul train numbers aren't going to be changing too much unless it's like really short haul ones, like between Guangzhou, Shenzhen. The ones that they have add-on trains, that's going to see some change. But the long distance ones, like say between Beijing and Hong Kong and Shanghai and Hong Kong, that's going to see quite a lot of change. Can they not keep the old one? Well, the old one, I would think, it's a bit too Beijing-centric, as in those train numbers that start from G1 to G100 were predominantly centered around Beijing. So, of course, if you were in Beijing, still I'm just traveling around a lot of central China these days. It's very good news. But if you're not in Beijing, then you have to stick with 3 to 4 digit numbers, and some of us will be like, where's the fairness and all that? So a bit of a changeover. China's Laos Railway, however, they're keeping the same D80 something ones for the time being. I think probably also in terms of, this being from Hong Kong, they're adding a few new destinations there. Notably Nanjing and Wuxi, as well as the provincial capital of Anhui, which is the city of Hefei. They're getting direct trains to Hong Kong as well. It's interesting because how they're going to run it. How they're going to run it actually is a train will actually leave Shanghai first, headed westbound towards Wuxi and Nanjing and Hefei before heading south to Hong Kong. Whilst it's not optimal like a direct south-westernly connection, the fact they're actually picking up a few more customers in these parts of, I would say, comparatively much more developed China, is like an indication that they're finally getting that direct train they've been waiting a long time for. And also with the official stance from official Peking that integration across the whole country, especially the so-called Greater Bay Area, Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Macau is a big thing. Having trains from that Greater Bay Area to the rest of China is obviously going to be a big thing as well. There is one new addition which, as I'm doing this recording right now, has not yet been fully announced, But if you're going between Beijing and Yinchuan in Ningxia, that's far western China rather, you will have a second choice. You can either choose between the current high-speed railway service, which goes via Beijing West, and probably costs a little bit more, or you can choose an old 250 km per hour train, which goes from Beijing North or Qinghe stations. And I think I don't have the times right now, I should have them soon, but if they run it right, it should actually be a little bit shorter because you don't have to detour by way of Zhengzhou anymore. And it's because it runs slower than the high-speed 350 service, it's obviously going to be a little bit cheaper than that, so more options. Also, the fact that you no longer have to contend with all of the different waiting rooms at Beijing West Railway Station. Beijing North is straightforward, so is Qinghe Station. There's just one main hall, and for Beijing North, there's even an underground waiting area if you're coming in from the subway. So it's actually a lot easier to get a train from Beijing North because you also have more subway lines. You get 3 subway lines at Beijing North and merely 2 at Beijing West. So when they finally have that service running, I hope it's going to be a lot easier, getting from the capital to Western China. Basically, China thinking also about the Spring Festival peak travel season, which is to start after the new timetables. The rest of the year, we could probably see another major revision to the timetable coming in summer, also to coincide with the summer holidays when more people will be traveling. We used to have 2 other major updates. One is supposed to be in April, and the other one is probably around October. They used to be major upgrades for passenger rail. In the past year or so, however, they have been less focused on passenger rail and more focused on cargo, which is actually not a bad thing because of a modal shift. If they're going to be taking more cars off, more trucks off the motorways, and giving all of this over to rail, it's going to be a greener way to get stuff from A to B. So it's going to be an exciting year. They have, I think, if I remember right, did they say around 2,000 kilometers of new lines? My guess is they're going to go way over that, and I hope I'm not going to be wrong. There is a way to predict how the Chinese railways will develop, but sometimes they take, they get stuff done and it takes you by surprise. And so sometimes it happens just like the trains at the back when I'm recording this. You don't know when it's going to happen. You hear it, and likely it just happens. And sometimes it doesn't happen. But no matter if it happens or not, the Chinese railways still remain one of the most exciting, mass, transport networks to take a look at anywhere in the world today.
列车运行前方到站是石家庄车站。